Hello and welcome to the news in Africa and the world. In tonight's edition, several people are feared dead and many more missing after heavy rainfall caused flash floods and landslides in part of western Kenya. Kenya Red Cross said several houses and businesses were swept away and the police post in Chesogon Trading Center. The current was strong enough to pull bikes and uproot trees. Most roads have been cut off and bridges washed away. Locals said they carried flood victims to nearby health centers on their backs. Kenya's Red Cross warned that once the flood was clear, other threats are loading. They fear waterborne diseases and a possible increase in the coronavirus infections. In November and December 2019, more than 40 people died after massive landslide in West Pokot, one of the areas badly damaged by heavy rains. With more rain expected in the coming days, help may be slow coming to these villages. In Burkina Faso, Human Rights Watch has called on the country to investigate the killings of 31 unarmed civilians who were arrested on April 9 during a government counter-terrorism operation in the country's north. The incident took place in Djibo, about 200 kilometers north of the capital Ouagadougou. The government is struggling to contain jihadist groups who have fueled any conflict and has provoked attacks on Fulani herders, whom other communities accuse of supporting militants. Human Rights Watch interviewed 17 people over the killings, including 12 witnesses to the arrest and later burial of the victims, the statement said, thus calling on government for an immediate and impartial investigation on the killings and hold to account all those responsible regardless of their social ranks. Nurses in Malawi have staged a walkout in hospitals across the country over working conditions amid fears they won't be able to handle the spike in coronavirus cases. This spike comes when there is division in the country over whether to implement a lockdown or not. They added they cannot cope with an increase of workload against the backdrop of already challenging working conditions. They say they lack adequate protective equipment as the contagious coronavirus is expected to rise. 20 confirmed cases of COVID-19 has been reported as of the delivery of this report. The country's Minister of Health in regard said he was looking into recruiting thousands of new hospital staff. All of this comes in the midst of whether the country should or not implement a 3-week nationwide lockdown. Government's proposal to shut down businesses was blocked by a high court, once more showcasing their independence as activists argued that authorities had no intentions to assist citizens who survive on daily earnings. Over to Lesotho, military vehicles and soldiers have been deported to the streets of Maseru after embattled Prime Minister Thomas Tabane moved to deal with security threats to restore order. He accused unidentified security forces of seeking to undermine democracy. He said the army will also help to enforce a 24-day lockdown against coronavirus in the country, which has so far registered a 0 case. The Prime Minister is under pressure to resign after police said they suspected his involvement in the murder of his wife in 2017, a case that has plunged the country into political turmoil. The deployment comes a day after the Constitutional Court overturned his decision to suspend Parliament for 3 months. In the economy, oil prices have plunged below zero for the first time in history, with the U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate WTI closing at $37.63 a barrel. It is the latest never before seen number to come out of the economic coma caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The unprecedented price fall comes as demand for energy collapses amid COVID-19 induced lockdowns and traders don't want to get stuck owning crude oil with nowhere to store its excess supply. Earlier this month, OPEC Plus and others such as Russia and Mexico agreed to cut out output by almost 10 million barrels per day, more than 10% for the next 2 months, the largest cut ever agreed to, though they say it is not enough. The extra move showed how oversupplied the U.S. oil market has become, with industrial and economic activity grinding to a halt as government around the globe extends shutdown. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his political rival Benny Gantz have signed an agreement to form an emergency unity government, ending the worst political crisis in the country's history. The power-sharing agreement means that Netanyahu will almost certainly remain in office for the duration of his upcoming trial on corruption charges. It brings political certainty to Israel after 3 inconclusive elections and a year of a political paralysis. Both men had faced calls to avoid a 4th election and form a coalition to help tackle the coronavirus pandemic. The Israeli Health Ministry has reported more than 13,700 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 177 associated deaths. Both parties signed a coalition deal at the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem on Monday night as Israel remained in a near total lockdown. In response to President Trump's accusation, the World Health Organization insisted on Monday that it sounded the alarm on the novel coronavirus right from the very start and had hidden nothing from Washington about the deadly pandemic. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom said there were no secrets at the UN agency after being blasted by the United States for allegedly downplaying the initial COVID-19 outbreak in China. The virus, which emerged last year in the Chinese city of Wuhan, has so far infected more than 2.4 million people globally and killed more than 165,000 according to official reports. Tedros said the presence of embedded U.S. government secondaries working at the WHO headquarters in Geneva meant there was nothing being considered from Washington. That brings us to the end of this edition of the news. Keep watching TBS television. Until we meet, do take care.